Scale your email marketing efforts with automation. One example is to send an automated series of emails to welcome new subscribers. That way, you're starting.
Good morning. Good morning. And can you see me, wonderful people? Good morning. I can see somebody saying that the kettle is on. The kettle is on. Wonderful. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning. Oops.
Good morning. And can you see me?
Hold on a second. I'm coming back at me. Let me see. Good morning, Borda. Good morning to you all. How wonderful. Ooh, Crazy Bunny, you can see me, can you? Right, wonderful. I need Crazy Bunny. Let me just find her. I can't believe, oops, it's skipping so quickly. Hold on, bear with me, darling people. Yes, good morning. It's Monday, May the 27th. It is exactly 9 a.m. in the UK. There is no saying what the next hour or so is going to be like. Anybody could pop up for a little chat because it's going to be one of those sort of shows. I love spontaneity. I think it's so important. And I like the feeling of just being live and just doing things there and then and just kind of getting with it and getting on it. How was your weekend? I hope you had a wonderful weekend. As I say, in the UK, it is spring bank holiday. Good morning, Maria from Australia, and Brett and Tina in Evola sunglasses. Marsh Girl, Mayday, Heppelwin, Gasgano, Tyrone, Jasmine. Hey, so many. This is wonderful. Soul Sound, Shug, Mogden. Hello, Mogden. You've come over from TNT chat. Wonderful to have you with us. I'm so grateful to you all being here. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for the phenomenal response from Thursday's first live stream. I did attempt to simultaneously live stream with X and Rumble this morning, but something went a bit wrong, so I'm going to have to upload to those later. Good morning to you, Jack David. Jack David is somebody who will be joining me on the show in the future. Love Jack. Good morning, Trudy and Sarah. Oh my God, it's so wonderful to see you all here. XRL7. Go check out that channel, please. Not right now, but I did a voiceover for a cartoon that they did. It was like basically this sort of journalist who's outing a band who have sold out. And it's wonderful. And I love it. Weekend was great knowing you were coming on today. I so appreciate that. Morning, Snow White. CHB evening in New Zealand. Good evening to you. First of all, want to remind everyone about my position on defamation. I know it's boring, but you know, I have many enemies. Some people roam the internet looking for ways to sue me. Please don't be part of the problem. So I'm not encouraging you to defame anybody, and I don't support it. That's on you. And also, obviously, I can't police the entire internet. And just to say that, first of all, thank you again for that incredible response on Thursday. It's enabled me basically to start straight away this morning. Some very kind and wonderful benefactors have stepped up to support the breakfast show immediately, which is just absolutely wonderful. And good morning to you, Amelia from Melbourne. Wonderful people from all over the world. Absolutely wonderful to have you here. Oh, yes, Lisa, were you told to go and suck on my tea? That's terrible. Yes, so also just to say what we're going to be doing initially. So this is like our soft launch. I don't know if any of you know what a soft launch is, but a soft launch is basically in preparation for a bigger launch, a harder launch. And we are going to start initially streaming Monday and Friday. And then when we're able to launch properly, we will be more throughout the week. Ideally, I'd like to be Monday to Friday. And today, primarily, I want to use the time to catch up on the stories that I've been unable to over the last few months. If you're wondering why I'm streaming on YouTube, it's because one, I have built up an audience on YouTube, and honestly, the reach on YouTube is phenomenal. So I just have to be incredibly careful what I'm saying here in order to be able to get to you. Mayday says all your TNT shows are on Odyssey. Oh, wow. That's really good to hear. Yes, please do smash the like button. And good morning, Steve from Dublin. Wonderful to have you all here today. Yes, as I say, spring bank holiday in the UK. We've had official bank holidays since 1871 when they were formally recognised by an act in Parliament. On these days, banks were allowed to close, and this then spread out into other businesses and schools. And while the four nations of the UK share some bank holidays, Scotland and Northern Ireland have a couple of different ones to England and Wales. And obviously, it's not just the UK that has public bank holidays. In fact, The UK actually has one of the lowest number of public bank holidays in the world with 8. Only Mexico has less with 7. And it's up to each country to decide how they want to use their bank holidays or not, frankly. On this day in history, I noted that the Sex Pistols released their second single, God Save the Queen, and it was quickly banned by the BBC. Not half as quick as when Johnny Rotten called out Jimmy Savile on the BBC. Did anybody see that? Amazing. And I want to say happy birthday, Tina. Happy birthday to you, Tina. It's your birthday, our first official live stream. Yes, Soul Sound, soft launch. That's the way we're going to start it. Oh, yes, France. Paddy, already covered what happened to brand YouTube on Thursday's show. So if you want to go on there, you will check it out. And I give quite a detailed explanation of what happened. Let me just quickly check on my Zoom. Right, okay, everything is hunky-dory here. We're recording, everything is fine. Right, let me tell you something funny. I woke up yesterday morning and there's an email waiting for me from, let me just find it, the showbiz editor at Talk, entertainment producer at Times Radio, and he is also the producer of the James Whale Show. Now, I don't know if anybody outside of the UK knows or even cares whom James Whale is, but I don't like James Whale. I don't like him at all. And one of the reasons I don't like him is he's part of the draconian, totalitarian, broadcasting globalist lot, frankly. He was absolutely horrendous around the whole issue of C-19 and people being jabbed and masking and all of that sort of stuff. Well, shocked. I know you're going to be shocked, but he recently received an MBE from the royal household. And the thing about an MBE or any of those sort of awards is they're really about acknowledging good establishment pets. And he is nothing if not a good establishment pet. But I also think it is absolutely wrong for anybody involved in the kind of journalistic professions to be receiving any form of award, because it means that they are then sort of beholden to the establishment and cannot call them out. So I did a video basically saying, well, of course, James Whale got an MBE because he's a good little establishment pet. Anyway, I received an email from his producer yesterday, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Hi, Sonia. I hope you are well. I produce James Whale on Talk TV, and he wanted to speak to you about your recent comments that journalists should not receive MBEs. For a debate, as James has an MBE next Saturday." This is actually supposed to be the editor, and it's the most awful grammar possible. But what they're saying is, could I go next Saturday, 1st of June, at 9 o'clock at night to their London Bridge studio? And he ends it by saying, "I'm afraid we cannot pay for interviews." So I responded by saying, "Hello, Johnny. James Whale is a stain on the backside of humanity. I would only consider coming and insulting him for a big fat fee. The fact that a Murdoch platform wants me to appear for free is astonishing. This is exploitation, and he can take it where the sun don't shine and the birds don't tweet. Best wishes, Sonia." That is generally how I respond to invites. I remember when Piers Morgan's show came to me, and my response was, I would rather eat my own head, because I don't want to be on any kind of media with these people. They're past it, absolutely past it. What they have to sell is not what I'm buying, frankly. Absolutely sick of that. Right. The other thing that I want to, there's so much I want to comment on this morning, and I will likely be joined by guests in and out. Who can ever tell? Like I say, it's a spontaneous time. The other thing I want to comment on is this Lucy Letby situation. Now, for those who are unfamiliar, Lucy Letby was convicted for the murder and attempted murder of babies in her care when she worked as a neonatal nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital. Is it Countess of Cheshire? Forgive me if I've got that wrong. I will correct it as I continue. And she actually was initially denied the right to appeal, and now she has been denied it again. And here's the thing, is that we are not allowed to know what she put in her appeal, and we are not currently allowed to know why the appeal was denied. It was overseen by Dame Victoria Sharp, sitting with Lord Justice Holroyd, and the full reason for their decision has not yet been made public. And the full details of Lucy's appeal is also unable to be published for legal reasons. So it's a bit iffy, isn't it? It's like we literally cannot know anything about this woman. And there are so many questions about it. And what we've heard from Dame Victoria is a full judgment will be handed down in due course. This story to me is so bad. Not only, as I say, are we not allowed to know what was said in her appeal, but we're not allowed to know about the judge's decision. And as I say, if you don't know the story, briefly, is the Countess of Chester Hospital between 2015 and 2016. And there are so many questions around this conviction, so many, which unfortunately I can't even discuss. However, there will be a retrial. This is on a single account that she attempted to murder a baby girl known as Child K in February 2016. And that retrial will be at Manchester Crown Court. And hopefully after that, we can actually talk more freely about this. And I've been contacted repeatedly about this by Ian. Good morning to you, Ian. And Ian is absolutely all over this case. He knows that there's huge questions to be asked. And he actually said the appalling decision to reject Lucy Letby's application to appeal goes against justice must be done and seen to be done. It seems like a huge cover up. And he's not the only one saying that, actually. So the upcoming retrial is on the 10th of June, expected to last 3 or 4 weeks. And Ian is saying that Lucy was a whistleblower, that she had reported mistakes. There's going to be guest speakers, I believe, at the Thirlwell inquiry into NHS whistleblowers, which starts 10th of September at Liverpool Town Hall. So it's interesting, but very confusing as to why we can know so little about this very, very serious conviction. Now, it's really great to see that the globalists got a good smacking last Friday. The WHO negotiators have failed to draft the pandemic treaty. And I'm literally going to be joined any second, in fact, right now, by somebody who's off to Geneva tomorrow to talk about it. Let's bring him in. Let's bring him in, because it's that kind of show where I can bring in whoever I want, whenever I want. How great is that? I'm free. It's great to be free. Right, hopefully, there he is. There he is. Good morning. George, you're asked to unmute.
Oh, very good. I've unmuted myself.
Wonderful.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. This is George Christensen. George has more of an outrageous reputation than me. So welcome, George. George has said more things to upset the powers that be than I have, which is quite a feat, frankly. George, thank you for joining us. You are, of course, from Citizen Go. We have to be extremely careful. As you know, we're on YouTube live stream.
Yes.
Be extremely careful about the YouTube rules because the reach here is great for us. So let's try and stick within those guidelines. So you
We'll
are
try to do that.
obviously a part of Citizen Go. You've got a petition and you're off to Geneva tomorrow. Why are you off to Geneva tomorrow, George?
Well, I'm off to Geneva to join other Citizen Go campaigners and, quite frankly, a whole heap of other protesters actually against the pandemic treaty. And it's beginning to look like, for once, we might get a big win with this. But we need to keep the pressure on. We've seen negotiations that have been going on in the World Health Organization circles to try and get this pandemic treaty sorted out prior to the World Health Assembly, where they wanted it voted on. Now, they haven't come to any sort of agreement. And as is always with these globalist outfits, they like to have all their ducks in a row, everything lined up before they get to the vote. And it just hasn't worked out that way for a variety of reasons. And some of the reasons aren't the reasons that you and I are against it, but we will take the win anyway. If we can scuttle this treaty, it will be probably the biggest blow to the globalists since the pandemic itself, I would say. And that's no mean feat. It's been a lot of effort to actually get to this point. So we're going to be there. We're going to be in the face of delegates. We're going to be lobbying delegates directly. We're going to be doing our confrontational campaigning approach. And already there's a big bus that Citizen Go has got emblazoned with anti-pandemic treaty slogans all over it that's touring a lot of different European cities and will be arriving in Geneva probably tomorrow, actually, to I think actually it might have arrived today, and it's driving around there. And so no delegate to that World Health Assembly will go without noticing that there is a big outrage and a big cry against this pandemic treaty going forward.
Wonderful to hear it. And the thing is that we obviously need to keep applying the pressure, but they did have quite an issue, didn't they, on Friday? So things are not working their way. As you say, it's not necessarily the things we've been pushing back against, but it doesn't matter. As you say, we take the win wherever we can. But it's interesting to see that Tedros, who chief says, this is not a failure, which sounds awfully like it is a failure, George.
When they say something is not what it is, it normally is that. But look, we just got to, this is the point, Sonia, I believe that they start to get dangerous, because when they're desperate, they start to get dangerous because they start to do anything to try and get what they want. Now, there's a myriad of things could happen here. Apparently, almost half of the treaty has been agreed to. It's the other half that's the contentious parts that different nations can't agree upon. So could they, at the last minute, throw up an extremely watered down treaty, which would still be bad for national sovereignty? It would still impose international obligations on nations that forever and a day they'll have to keep. It could still undermine personal health choices if nations sign up to it. That's a possibility, and that's why we need to be there. We need to stop them from putting up anything. We just need to scuttle this treaty altogether. And I got to say, from then on in, the fight still hasn't stopped, because you know as well as I do, with your government there in the UK, even though they're so-called conservatives, I was part of a so-called conservative government when I was a member of Parliament in Australia, and sometimes they do everything that's not conservative. And so I suspect that governments that are willing, that go along with the vast bulk of what this pandemic treaty is all about, will probably start to implement measures themselves directly with the United Nations. We'll probably start seeing unilateral agreements with the United Nations. That's what we've got to be really prepared for, and that's the next fight. It's going to be against our own governments rather than a globalist body. Our own governments have been always quick off the mark of selling off national sovereignty and our personal liberties to these globalist outfits. So, vigilance is the key.
Absolutely it is. George, thank you so much for joining us as briefly as you did this morning. We greatly appreciate it. Good luck in Geneva tomorrow. And if anybody's in any doubt about what's going on, they basically want to trap us in a global lockstep, with the globalists leading it, in order that we all respond exactly the same way to the next pandemic. Right, George, take excellent care of yourself. Please let us know how it goes in Geneva, and hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. This, everybody, is George Christensen, and he is from Citizen Go. Take good care, George. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sonia. Bye.
Brilliant. And this is what we need, isn't it? More people who are just kind of out there and are prepared to do these things. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, George, for joining us. I did tell you it's going to be one of those mornings where people are just going to pop up out of nowhere. And let me just see. There was something. What I want to look at next is this. Anybody familiar with this? This is the latest book on the Madeleine McCann disappearance. And I'm just trying to find my information about it. I've got it somewhere. Well, I'm just going to carry on talking anyway. So basically, this was sent to me by the author, Bernd Stellander, who's also known as the Foreign Detective. This is I think about 7-year-long piece of research, and it looks into the story of the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. And I have finally got around to start reading it. And I actually don't even bother wasting any more time listening to me. Let's bring in the author, because we can do things like that, can't we? Right, hopefully he is here with us right now. He's just connecting, and he's actually in Portugal. And so, as I say, I've started reading it, and it is fascinating. And some of the key things that I had originally thought, Bernie sort of turns it on its head and gives a different idea of what could potentially have happened in 2007. And for those who aren't familiar, Madeleine McCann is arguably the world's most famous missing child. Here he is. Good morning, Bernie.
Good morning, Sonia, and good morning to all your viewers.
Wonderful to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Bernie isn't actually here to be interviewed this morning, oddly enough, because I'm going to do a proper lengthy interview with Bernie, because as many of you know, this is a topic that is of great interest to me. So, Bernie, as I say, thank you for joining us. getting rave reviews from normally very critical individuals on this case. Are you pleased with the response so far?
Yeah, it's kind of not shocking, but a little humbling, because these people that are actually given a review so far are basically the most critical you could actually find, because they are very set on timelines, especially, and Smith sighting and things like that. So I'm stepping on some toes, but getting those reviews in that respect, and they actually took the time to actually give me a chance to argue for my view, is really interesting, and gives me a really good hope for something could move on into something concrete, because I'm not here to sell a book. I'm here to solve a mystery.
Yes, I absolutely hear you, and you've got great credentials. You've come into this with really great credentials. And just remind everybody where the title comes from. It comes from a Jerry McCann interview, doesn't it? Or a Kate and Jerry McCann, rather, but it's a Jerry McCann quote, isn't it?
Yes, it's on his own page, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to read it, actually. So he says, sometimes people do things for reasons that even they cannot understand. And then to continue, an act of madness, an accident, or a sudden impulse could lead to consequences that people may never have imagined or intended. Faced with such a situation, we believe any human soul ultimately suffer torment and feelings of guilt and fear. And so that obviously very interesting quote, as we know. But what is interesting, obviously, Bernie, is you have kind of turned it a little bit on your head. You agree for the most part with, so my understanding, with the Portuguese police files that Madeleine never left apartment 5A, but well, certainly not alive anyway. But you disagree with the date. You say all of this, and we have to be extremely careful on this YouTube, which is why I'm going to be interviewing Bernie on Rumble. But you say everything really happened the day before on May the 2nd. Tell us very carefully a little bit about that, Bernie.
Yeah, just let me please give you just a little bit of background, because, this is not a position I was chasing or wanting. But before I moved to Portugal, I studied the police files very thoroughly. So I had kind of a lot of information. And strangely enough, I didn't move here because of this case. And after having lived here 6 months, I actually was a little bored. And I thought, hey, why don't I go to Praia de Luz and have a look? And I walked around in the area, taking things in. And all this information I had stocked up led to some kind of revelation, which led to the theory. And based on my theory, I just, I did a methodical survey of a certain area, and every discovery based on my theory led the same direction. And it's very dangerous to fall in love with your own theory, especially, I was, of course, in the Policia Judiciaria as one of the cuckoo folders immediately, because there's only one way you get, and that's into that folder. So that was an 8-month quest to penetrate, to actually show them my theory. But one thing led to another, and here we are. But that has to do with the area, of course, of my findings. But in terms of the time of the tragedy, it basically started off with, the thing is that people that are in normal life are kind of innocent, and they speak too much, and then truth leaks. It has a tendency, and we should pay attention to words. And especially James' football comment was that, hey, what is this? But what tipped me over is actually that when one of the suspects at the time called the night of May 2nd for the night of all nights, I mean, there should be some alarm bells going off. And that's where I also started that kind of analysis. And again, all the discoveries there led to this time. And I've seen a lot of great investigators, and call them armchair detectives. I mean, they could get a job in any department, police force, in my book, a lot of these people. And they helped me a lot. But they kind of stretched it a little bit too far for Amaral to get on board. But
right.
I'm hoping with this line of thought and logics that I think I'm the first one and the only one to pinpoint within the hour. I think I can get it within 35 minutes.
That's
insane. Of course, the last hour of the night of May 2nd. And we'll see what comes from that. And I'm not here to destroy or hate or anything. I was just sick and tired of this nonsense and this obvious.
Yes.
Yeah,
and many people are, Bernie. This is the problem. But it's not just the case of us being irritated by it, but it's also the fact that we're paying so much money for it. Brits at least have shelled out about £40 million for a crime that didn't even happen in this country. But you're saying we shouldn't have shelled out a penny because there was no abduction. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, what I'm saying is that what about the other parents that have missing children, but every 5 minutes or something, as you know, many of them return. But why this one child and this story? But, we can all speculate. And I tend to not to speculate too much on those things. I just bring up the hard facts and what's on the table. And of course, I try to put the jigsaw puzzle together with the pieces, but people can make up their own mind of my findings. And obviously, like you said, these critical sources already having given a review, they seem to like this new puzzle board. And, it's a beautiful image. And the thing is, people say it's complicated. For me, it was like so obvious that something was off with the people involved. But the thing is that once you understand the truth, or at least are open-minded for this new truth and this new jigsaw puzzle and the image I present, everything makes sense after that. And that's like a good lead to the truth, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And also one of the things that I enjoy that you do, and very much I enjoy, and that was Richard D. Hall obviously introduced the whole idea of statement analysis to the case via the very brilliant Peter Hyatt, who both you and I clearly have a great deal of admiration for. And I think that in itself was really opened wide the case in so many key respects. And you're very interested in the statement analysis angle of it, aren't you?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I didn't even know what that was when I started this. Really, honestly, I just knew that words matter. And I was very thorough in terms of sentences, what could be leaking, what are they actually saying? And if you, before that, actually have seen through their, the body language and something is off, you kind of pay more attention to what sticks out, right? And then I saw this thing that he did with Peter Hyatt, and it just was a revelation. I couldn't believe it. It's actually a science. So, of course, you see the media, I'm a hobby detective and all that stuff. I have credentials, but basically everything boils down to common sense, and just focus. And you don't have to have some nice things on your shoulder to have a common sense and a good meaning and a good angle. To the contrary, it could actually blind you and give you tunnel vision, which we've seen in this case.
Yes.
But I don't like to attack or hate, because everything has a context and you have to go back in their shoes at the time. And not everybody has that ability. I understand that, but we just have to try to digest and chew on it. And that's why I try to, circumstantially describe and think and speculate a little bit, of course, around these facts. But I only went where the facts led you or not, but I never had any doubt, and which it was weird for me, because nobody wants to spend 7 years writing this brick of a book, and not to make money. You would be an idiot if you write that book.
Yes.
Money, because of course
it's a tome. Absolutely. It's a brick of a book. There's no getting around it, but it is absolutely fascinating. Tell people where they can find this if they wish to.
Well, they could start with the simplest link. It's to the foreigndetective.com, just foreigndetective.com. And you click on the link there, you will get to Portuguese Bertrand. But I have actually only signed off Portugal and as a language globally, and for English books sold in Portugal. So I'm actually open and free and waiting for things to evolve so that I can find new partners in this. And that's why. Well, also there's, to be honest with you, it's a little strategic matter of not making the book digital right away, because I want certain people to feel the weight of it in their hands if you catch the script. Because it has
excellent point. Excellent point. It's like having physical cash in your hand. It's that different to having a debit card. Absolutely.
No cash, no money, not that. But I'm thinking about the people who's fearing the content. I want them to feel it in their hands, so maybe they can make a choice of doing the right thing or playing along and risk something if the police do their job. So it's the psychological thing. I want them to know that this is massive and actually see it instead of scrolling through their phone.
Yeah, absolutely. Before you leave us, Bernie, just give some people, and we'll give our wonderful viewers an indication of your background and what led you to this, to the moment of what you decided, because you weren't born in Portugal. Obviously, you went there, didn't you?
Well, my father, he studied medicine in Austria, and I was born there by an Austrian mother. And I grew up in northern Norway, above the Arctic in Tromsø, the land of the midnight sun and the aurora borealis. And we have mandatory duty in Norway, military at that time. So I served 12 months in the military police. And then I applied for duty, which many does, for adventure to Lebanon, to the UN forces. And we were, basically we're corporals, but I was allowed to do some certain investigations and extra curriculum or whatever, because mainly because of my English speaking capacities. I had been a foreign exchange student in Missouri in 84, 85. So basically it's this curiosity and solving mysteries. I don't like to be outsmarted, to be honest with you. It has to do with my mom, because it was kind of a battle there intellectually. Because I could walk in on Agatha Christie and I just tell her who the murderer is, and she got so pissed. But I had this hunch for things, and I don't know. We all have our talents, and maybe they will bloom late in life. I don't know. I always wanted to be a police officer and an investigator, but football took me off that road, and I got injured, and here we are.
Here we are indeed. And so what we're going to do, Bernie, is you and I are going to organize a proper interview where we can both drill down on the details of your investigation, which I'm very much looking forward to. But thank you for hopping on and joining us this morning, and have a brilliant Monday, everybody. This is Bernd Stellander, also known as Bernie, aka the Foreign Detective. And this is his tome, his brick, as he calls it. Take good care of yourself, Bernie. Listen, let's speak later.
Thank you so much. Thank you to your viewers. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Brilliant to have Bernie with us. Absolutely brilliant. So yes, as I say, it's going to be one of those kind of shows where people pop on and pop in. Thank you, Bernie, says Shell. What's that? There is a market for real news by real journalists. Pity the rest don't realize this. Hallelujah. Thank you, Bernie, says Tony Griffiths. And I'm absolutely delighted to see somebody that I like very much just pop up and make themselves known to me, because I asked her to if she would. And I know that many of you are going to be delighted to see her. She is an old friend of pretty much anything that I do. This lady, I like to get her involved because she's just so fabulous and she's just so great. So I'm just there. Look, there she is, everybody. It is psychotherapist Lucinda Lidston. And it's so wonderful to have her. I sent her this email last night saying, I'm doing everything spontaneously. This is the way I want to run it from now on. And obviously, Lucinda, we will obviously make appointments for people to sit down. I like this feel of just like, if you fancy it, hop on. And here she is. Yeah. Wonderful to have her with us. Yes, it is wonderful to have her with us. Yes. Hi, Lucinda, says hi. Crazy Bunny. Nice one. Nice one. Lucinda, what is moving you this morning?
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's got to be the whole geoengineering, I'm afraid.
Bring it on, sister. Let's talk.
Well, yeah. So I was obviously watching your live stream the other day, and I couldn't believe that TNT wouldn't let you talk about it, because there was that, as you said, that particular weekend, wasn't there, when it was just, I counted over 20 lines up in the sky outside my house. That was, underestimating. And I think that since then, I think it maybe has calmed down a little bit. I haven't had a day where it was as extreme as that. But they're out again this morning, and it's lovely and sunny here. And so I'm imagining that in a couple of hours, it will be all a white out and probably raining this afternoon. So, but to be honest, I had to take a bit of a step back from it, because I got so wrapped up in it and so furious all the time. You come out in the morning, it's gorgeous sky, lovely blue sky, and then within hours, all the trails are there. But in the finish, I was just I was just destroying my own quality of life. And what is the point of that,
Right. I mean, the thing is, you as a psychotherapist are aware more than most people about how too much of this kind of oppressive thinking can really harm us, can't it? And you and I have talked at length about how to deal with the sort of bad news vibrations that are constantly hitting us. So is that like a basic thing when things become overwhelming? Is it just a step back? Is that
You have
for
to.
some? I know, but it's so hard for some people, isn't it? Because when it's something so important as geoengineering raining down on us, right? And then, but we are being gaslit by the same token by people saying, oh, there's no such thing. And you lot are all, tinfoil hat wearers and everything. So there's a number of things that are hitting us, isn't it? It's the denial of our experience. How does that impact people?
Yeah, I think you go through stages, don't you? I mean, I find it ridiculous that anyone can deny anything. I mean, just look up, just look at the sky. That's what I say. Just watch it. You know, how can you? And we know on the government websites that, of course, they acknowledge that they do geoengineering. It's there in black and white. But I think that you have to go through your own stages, and when you feel yourself getting overwhelmed, you have to step back. Otherwise, what use are we? And in a way, they've won then, haven't they? Because we're ruining our own quality of life. So, I've taken a few weeks out. I've had my head in other things. And I think, as I said to you before, you've just got to remember what's important for you, connecting, spending time with friends, spending time with family, all of those things that really are the stuff of life, really. And I do think you have to come back to that. But for each of us, it's finding our own balance, isn't it? How do you keep, I want to know the truth, I want to know what's going on, but I was just getting so irate every single day. And that's not good for you physically, is it? It's not good for your physical system.
No, it isn't at all. And I'm really glad. See, here's the thing, lovely people. I had no idea what Lucinda wanted to talk about. This is the whole new Sonia mode. I'm like, people I trust, and I trust Lucinda. I trust her to pop up on a screen, be absolutely live, and still not sell me down the river, which is an amazing thing. Well, that's the reality, though, isn't it? It's like literally, I had no idea what you were going to talk about, but it's so wonderfully fitting because what I actually prepared also to talk about, one of the things I prepared to talk about today was the very thing that I was banned from talking about at TNT, which was the response from all around the world when I did talk about it. And that video went viral, and the response was absolutely incredible. So the video alone had hundreds of thousands of views on social media. It was literally shared all over the world: China, Germany, France, Amsterdam, South Africa, Serbia, and like literally all over. Let me read some. And it got community noted. You can always tell on X when you've overstepped the mark when they community note you. I don't know if you know what a community note is.
No, tell me.
Well, basically, it's sort of, clearly people who are compromised in one way or another. And what they do is, if there's a post where there are question marks over it or controversial posts, they do this thing called a community note where they say fact check the post, right? So my post was very simple. I said, the sky looks like somebody's taken a large Tipp-Ex brush to it. There's something wrong. This is happening all over the world. We need to be able to ask questions. It's clearly not just a conspiracy theory because, as you say, Lucinda, it's all over the government website, for goodness sake. It's been going on an awful long time. We know about that situation in Lynmouth, for example, I think, which was in the 70s, which was actually covered by a BBC Radio 4 programme, where there were landslides, where they were testing there. But what was interesting is the responses that people had to the community notes. The community note said, and I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, it said, oh, there's only contrails. What are you going on about? That was what the community note, right? And so I'm going to read you some of the responses. Cass said, on the basis of the community note, we would never have a clear sky on a warm day. And Wayne Tarquin, good morning to you, Wayne, says, I rated the note as not helpful. The topic of weather modification and geoengineering has been suppressed by social media companies for far too long. The debate has to be heard and the facts have to be shown. And Rachel had just had a good laugh saying, community notes now spreading lies. And that's the thing. We're living in an age of real time, aren't we, Lucinda, where when people want to try and pull the wool over our eyes, there are 100 other people coming up on the rear saying, actually, no, here's the reality. That's definitely something good for humanity, isn't it? Us being able to call out the liars in real time.
Yeah, I think so. It's got to be. And I think that more and more people are becoming aware, you know, for all those that you say still gaslight us and say, oh, no, why would the government do that? You know, I think there's far more people that are aware. You know, it's on Facebook, it's on X, you know, but so I do. I think as I say, how can you ignore it? And, you know, when it comes to debate, what's the debate? Just stop doing it. Just stop doing it. Because apart from whatever poisonous stuff there might be in that for us, it's the arrogance, isn't it? You to think that we can control the weather. You know, what possible repercussions might that have? You know, we don't know. We have no idea what we might be doing to the ecosystem of the whole planet. And just stop it. Just stop it now. There is no debate. Just don't do that.
Absolutely. We love it. Lucinda, before you leave us, we're also going to be touching on this whole issue of elections, because I've been forced to by lovely Priscilla, who is one of our viewers. And she said, I know you don't want to touch on it, but actually we probably need to, because even if I think it's absolutely pointless, that doesn't mean that everybody thinks it's pointless. And we should obviously also be preparing for certain things. So one of the things that I put out on social media yesterday was, what are your thoughts about the elections? Are you politically homeless? We had a fantastic response. I'm going to be reading some of that. Tell me, what are your thoughts about elections?
I think it's an absolute waste of time. I am 100% politically homeless because I just think that they're all puppets. You know, this isn't who's controlling the planet. So I just think it's just a waste of time. It's just something to distract us from the bigger issues, like the guy you had on this morning, George, was talking about, you know, the next pandemic treaty. And that's happening now, isn't it? They're already saying that bird flu has jumped species, and I mean, what an utter load of nonsense. So I think really they're the things that we should be focusing on, and whoever gets into the power, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. That is my view.
Let me read you some of the comments. Annie, on the subject of geoengineering, says, I can't believe that this topic has taken so long to reach the average masses. Thousands of us have been discussing this for 20 years already. Absolutely, Annie, absolutely. Mazzy says, absolutely, just look up. My neighbour from Eritrea says it's beautiful in a way, you know, he knows, laughed at me. And Method said, sky is sickly yellow grey in Scotland. And that's the fact, is that the skies... Look, I don't claim to have all the answers, not at all. One of the reasons that I do what I do is I like to throw everything out there and see what comes back and see if other people can come up with some answers, right? But we should be allowed to ask questions without being automatically deemed as a conspiracy theorist, right? And that is part of the problem. Do you think, Lucinda, because it's my experience that a lot of the people who are online doing this whole you're a conspiracy theorist are actually paid hands? What do you think about that?
Well, I just think it's a bit of an outmoded term, really, isn't it? Because everything we've said that's so-called conspiracy theory has been proven to be true, from vaccine injury to geoengineering. So I don't know. I don't know anymore. But the last thing I want to say about it is, recently, a couple of weeks ago, I was flying back from Amsterdam, and you're only up in the sky for 35 minutes, really short flight from here. But we got to just about the top of the haze, and to see it from in an aeroplane, to see the haze across, I mean, it was quite astounding. It was getting that different perspective and thinking, actually, I should be able to see the ground underneath me. I should be able to see, you know, the landscape, etc., as I'm rising up into the sky. But our commercial flight, I would say, just about got to the top of the layer of haze. So whatever altitude they're spraying from, I don't know anything about this, but I imagine it's a lot higher than your average kind of commercial flight. So that was a very different perspective to get. That was quite interesting and quite shocking to see it from that point of view.
I hear you. Dame Mishi on X said one of the responses about this geoengineering is, I know nothing about this subject. However, we just returned from a fortnight in Lanzarote with wall-to-wall sunshine, apart from 2 days after this. Possibly nothing, but the locals describe the thick haze as another Kalima that is coming more often. And that is the point, is whether we know or we don't know, people around the world are noticing the difference. And so what's going to happen is we're going to have a mass tipping point. And then then those globalists had better watch out, because once we really realize that there are truly more of us than them, that's when everything's going to change, right? So it's bank holiday. Anything nice planned, Lucinda?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I guess it's whether the weather holds out for me, really. So, because I'll be sitting in the garden, listening to the birds, doing all that lovely natural stuff, getting connected. So that's what's important to me.
Thank you for joining me on my very first proper stream, and wonderful to have you with us. Hope we see you more regularly, everybody. This is the very glorious Lucinda Lidston. Take care, Lucinda.
Bye, my darling.
Lovely
Bye.
to see you. Wonderful to see her this morning rather. There we go. Right, where are we? In Scotland. What's going on in Scotland? Not normal. What's that? I don't know what's going on. Do you remember the clear skies during the lockdown, Michael? I did. Crazy Bunny says we are conspiracy realists, and so say all of us. Let me just, where do I want to go on this? Oh, some of the other responses that I received from all around the world to do with this. One of them was the real Tanya Rose, and she was really saying, look, this is an open secret, which you and I know. She said, look at the patents going back to the early 1900s, incredible number of geoengineering related patents, coincidentally, of course. Right. Yes, it was absolutely. I love seeing Lucinda. She'll be back with us soon. Yes, she will. Right. Let's talk about this election. No, first of all, I want to make a correction, because here's the thing. Is that I do not have a problem making a correction if I make a mistake. So feel free, if I say anything and you're like, oh, that's not quite accurate, feel free to contact me. And one of the corrections I want to make very briefly is in regard to Katie Hopkins. I mentioned Katie Hopkins on Thursday's live stream, and I said, talking about TNT, and I said that they got rid of her and asked me to take her spot for the first week. I was at the station and I refused. All of that is true. But here's the thing, let me add more to that, because on its own, it sounds like they just outright sacked her. They didn't. TNT and Katie have both said that there were issues with Katie's connectivity, and that was why she couldn't continue. And that's right, as far as I understand it. But I also know what they said to me about her as well, including the fact that they didn't like her getting angry with viewers who criticized her stance on Israel. So there was lots of other things going on, but no, she wasn't outright sacked. So I just wanted to clear that up, because I think it's important to, right? It's important to, when we make a mistake, we need to be able to clear it up. Right, onwards. Where am I up to? I wanted to talk about elections, as I say. Let me find, because as I say, lovely Priscilla had written to me, and feel free to write to me about anything that is interesting you, that is moving your world, right? And I will tackle it if possible. And if it has some, like, once I've looked into it, if it has some validity, I'll definitely give it some airtime, no doubt about it. So let's have a look at the elections thing. As I say, lovely Priscilla wrote to me, right? And she said, I know you don't want to discuss elections, but I would be really grateful if you could let me know your opinion about the choice of not voting at all, right? I am a citizen of both the UK and Italy, and I don't feel represented by any of these people. So I decided that I'm not going to vote. Yet the sense of guilt sometimes creeps up, telling me if you don't vote, you play the game. And Catherine says, selections, you mean? Ray J, selections, not elections. And I totally get what she says, what Priscilla says, because the problem is that we all know that when we vote, we're voting for the least worst one, which is no way at all the most uninspiring, unmotivating way to go around actually selecting our leaders. So I threw out on social media and I asked people what they thought, really. I said, please let me know your thoughts on elections and whether you will be voting. And some questions that I asked people to consider. Do they care about elections? Do they make any difference? Are people politically homeless? Do you trust politicians? Do you spoil your ballot? What is the alternative to voting, right? What is the alternative to voting? And Peter says, good morning, Peter. I will check out the independent candidates that are running. And if there is any of those I agree with, I will vote for. If there isn't, I will spoil my ballot and write none of the above. And DJ Morpheus says, I have no intention of ever voting again. My vote goes to someone who will appreciate my time and effort in voting for them. The simple fact is, you vote for any one of the current crop, you may as well have a lucky dip, right? Not a single one of them is honourable enough to deserve my vote. And, let me just read some of these comments that are going on. Mark's Adventure says, I do not consent. Tony Adams says, you don't vote for the smaller parties, but then wonder why the smaller parties get no votes. Yes, I hear that. Oh, yes, Lady Danbury UK has brought us round to my child will not be doing national service. Now, let me jump in and out of this. So obviously yesterday, the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, came out in a column in the Mail on Sunday. The Mail group absolutely love Rishi Sunak and Conservatives in general, came out in a column saying that the idea now is to have national service, right? National service. This is quite extraordinary. National service, I think, for 18-year-olds onwards, right? And David Icke and others believe that this is actually about a handover. This is Rishi publicly giving up his role of Prime Minister. So unbelievably unpopular is such a suggestion. And they're not just talking about going off on a weekend camp. They are basically talking about putting people who are late teens into paid roles, but as part of a mandatory service. And that could include firefighters, for example. And Gwyneth says, let Rishi go on the front line. My thing, Gwyneth, is when they start putting their own children on the front line, then we can take it more seriously. But the fact is, I'm not going to take it seriously. It's absolutely disgusting what they're suggesting. And so the idea is these sort of radical plans to force 18-year-olds to serve in the military for 12 months, or to give up their weekends carrying out civil duties. And one of the things that I said on X, because it makes me absolutely sick, is these globalists, they want to control us from cradle to grave, don't they? They want to fulfill our every waking hour, right? So that we haven't got time to revolt against them. And Ozone said, we are not citizens, persons, plaintiffs, taxpayers, occupiers. They are all terms for slaves. We are man, woman, or one of the people. Let me read that. That's important. It says in the Bible, let no man place persons, titles upon you. I hear that. And Amri says, Rishi doesn't want to be a wartime prime minister. He wants out. And so it is interesting, isn't it? Let me carry on reading some of these comments from Twitter about really what can we do? Craig Campbell says, I won't be voting. They don't matter a jot. Nothing changes. Nothing ever will. The higher you go, the more corrupt the system is. Spoiling my ballot this time. Remember COVID passports? That about sums up what politicians think of us. And Gunamum wants to vote them all out. Our legal right is to vote I do not consent as it is counted and sacks the parties. They're terrified people will find that out. It's the only peaceful way. And that is the thing, is we have to remember that in the build up to an election, that is the moment when we ourselves have some power. I don't believe, right? And I don't believe this. I don't believe that they can put in whoever they want. We've seen that once somebody's in, they can change it around. But I do think that when it comes to a general election, they are working on votes. They're working on votes because the voter turnout is so low and they stand a damn good chance of it, right? So, and I've never ever seen any evidence which actually shows me of tampering at election level, but obviously, we saw what happened in America, didn't we? And forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't claim to always get it right. Absolutely. Oh, Jonathan, who is UK Freedom Alliance Party? How do we write to you? I tried to email, but return with address cancelled, says Jan. Jan, I'm at Sonia Poulton at sky.com, right? And Dee says, I do not consent is counted as a vote. So I think in answer to Priscilla's question, that's where we need to go then. I do not consent, right? Legal doesn't apply to man or woman. It's corporate law. Shalini says, yes, you can spoil your ballot. I've looked into it. They are counted and numbers spoilt are read out. So I think that is probably the solution, because what else is there at this moment in time? That is the difficulty, isn't it? Graham Kemp says, avoid all major political parties. Consider independents and micro parties with values that chime. Consider standing oneself. And Graham also talks about spoiling the ballot paper with I do not consent. And if raining, he says, stay home. And the problem is that we do know that when it comes to our political system, we can clearly see that all of the people who are leading the major parties, because it's a two-party system, they're all globalists. Keir Starmer infamously said that he preferred Davos, which is obviously the home of the World Economic Forum, to Westminster, which is the home of British politics. And that, I think, speaks volumes, doesn't it? So I think generally the general consensus around here is spoil your ballot. That's it. I mean, what is the alternative, right? Or one of my friends is very keen on protest messages at the ballot. And she wrote about lockdowns and how they had harmed and damaged people and how it was all a lie. But I'm not sure if that gets counted. Right. Any other suggestions? Please feel free to tell me. Please feel free to tell me. Now, just want to say I am in Edinburgh in a few weeks. I read the title of the talk I'm giving and I absolutely love it. It's Secret World, Truth, Journalism, Misinformation and Puppeteers. That's on Saturday, 15th of June, 2 to 4 p.m. in Edinburgh. More details to follow. I'm very much looking forward to it. I love doing live events. It's absolutely brilliant. And get out and actually talk to people. Future Skeleton says the alternative is that no one votes. I know that is the problem, isn't it? And then the thing is, vote or don't vote, we still get in the people that we don't want. We need an entirely new system. And yes, thank you, Anglo. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant amount of live viewers. Thank you. I really appreciate this so much. I'm really grateful. It's just wonderful. Right. In an occasional series, this one is called Where is Kate? Yes, where is Kate? Last time we saw Kate Middleton was Christmas 2023. Since then, we've been subjected to, well, frankly, one weird event after another. There was the Mother's Day picture with the multiple Photoshop changes, the apparent visit to the Windsor Farm Shop with William, who many are now saying was, can't remember her name, something Dunlop, who is a Kate lookalike, a well-known impersonator, actually. And whatever the truth is, people have a right to ask questions, right? Jonathan, you can email me at soniapoulton@sky.com, right? So yeah, whatever it is, whatever has happened to Kate, wherever she is, and whatever reasons and excuses they give us, people have a right, actually, I think a duty to ask questions, because we were told in January that she was having abdominal surgery, and then they said that they discovered cancer, although oncologists and cancer surgeons have questioned this approach of the discovery of cancer. And I put out messages on social media saying I don't know if the story circulating about Kate Middleton's disappearance is true or not, but I do know events regarding her this year have been really weird, and it does absolutely smack of a cover-up, and people have a right to ask questions. And what I discovered from that is that the royal household is employing an absolute shed load of people online to keep up the narrative. I mean, there's literally no doubt about it. Good morning from Russia, and good morning to you, Robert. Good morning. And Michael says, if we are paying for her, we have a right to ask. We absolutely do. These people are public servants. Yes, they are. They're public servants, right? And also, I want to be really clear about this, and that is, just because people ask questions, it doesn't mean that we don't care about people recovering from cancer, if that is what is really going on, right? But we've seen what happens with frequently women who marry into the Windsor household, and sometimes the outcome is not really fabulous, is it? Not really fabulous. So we have a right to ask about it. And now, but the mystery deepens it even more. Now they've added to it that we are unlikely to see her throughout the rest of this year. This story was reported in the Daily Beast, claimed to have been told by royal sources that Kate Middleton may not appear in public for the rest of the year. And Collie, greetings from Saudi Arabia. Oh my God, we are truly worldwide. Love it. Absolutely love it. This story, right? Daily Beast. Really interesting. At the moment, Kate and William and the children are currently supposed to be at the Sandringham estate, which is one of the royal estates paid for by you and I. And what they noted and what the source had said to the Daily Beast is that Kate's diary for this year is empty. And said lots of people are involved in planning, need to know what all the principals are doing a long way in advance. And Kate's diary for this year is empty. There is nothing planned. She may not appear in public for the rest of the year. Add to this, the Daily Mail's Richard Eden, who reported on Thursday that some of Kate's friends have told him, we might not see Catherine again until the autumn, and only then if she has recovered fully. Got to bear in mind, obviously, that Daily Mail might as well be royal public relations, because they, again, a lot of, well, actually almost all of the newspapers love the royal family and maintain that charade. And when the royal source was asked how they would deal with the inevitable questions that a further Kate absence would bring, they were told that not to rule out another video message updating the country on her health. Well, the last one didn't go too great, did it? It was a video message released March 22nd, made in cooperation with from BBC Studios. And OE Mission Mez, listen, I'm covering, as you can see today, a million different stories. But the most important thing is I decide what to cover. I decide, and oftentimes based on what other people are asking me questions about. And the amount of people that have asked me about Kate and to make a comment about it is exactly why I'm asking this question right now, right? And as we know in that video, Kate apparently revealed that she had a cancer diagnosis. So the question is, and I do think that we need to ask, yes, we do. Jan says Charlie's cancer is a distraction. Wasn't that curious that at the same time that the royal household announced that Kate and Charles were both having like surgery and there was diagnosis to do with cancer? I found that quite interesting. And of course, around about the same time, we heard about this fabulous new jab that will be appearing on the market. So I think we have a right to be asking questions, and I will continue asking questions because I think that's important. Yes, I do. Right. And in a regular section now called There's That Year Again, I note that a multitude of news stories this weekend all were referring to the year 2030, right? 2030. Who is familiar with what 2030 earmarks? It's the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, right? Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate that. It's the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, right? It's earmarked for 2030. They got 17 goals. And if you think that your neighborhood is changing, it's because it's changing in line with the United Nations Development Sustainable Development Goals, right? That's where all the 15-minute cities come from. That's all the net zero targets, the green agenda, everything, you name it. Thank you, JL Gonzalez. Thank you. So that is, as I say, please tell me your examples of any news stories that you see that capture that magic number 2030, and we'll call it There's That Year Again, right? Now, I want to tackle something that a number of, I told you, I do respond to what people have to say to me. And I want to tackle something that I often see in my comments, and that is about an ex-cop called Gary Waterman. And I am somebody who tackles things head on, right? Let me address this. Most people who I'm speaking to now will not have a clue who he is, but he made a series of videos where he claims me and a number of other people are refusing to interview him. So for the majority who don't know, here it is. Gary Waterman is an ex-police sergeant. He's a partner in a property business for over a decade, and he fell out with his business partners. He resigned from the company, and then he began to make huge claims about his ex-partner being involved with national and international fraud that links to trafficking and more. This is huge, right? Sounds huge, right? Huge story. Well, here's the thing. I applaud him for running a fairly successful campaign, but the fact is his story does not bear out. He's using the names of people like me who have put themselves out there for years, and he's trying to suggest that we might have issues with him, with what he's saying, and that we are in on the fraud. I've been told this weekend that he's now started defaming me, saying I'm in on the fraud. This is a lie, certainly regarding me, and it is defamatory. So the basis for Gary's claim is a company incorporation fraud, right? He rang me and took me through this step-by-step guide. And one of the reasons why a number of people are writing to me is because other YouTubers and influencers have given a platform to Mr. Waterman, including the lovely Richard Vobes, including Chris Thrall, including Mark Atwood. All three I've interviewed and have a great deal of time for. And they've all given time to this ex-cop. And some of them have given time for him to say, Sonia Poulton is not covering my story. So this is for future reference. I will not address this again, right? So I'm going to address this once and for all. And the next time Gary Waterman's name pops up in the comments, please feel free to refer them to this live stream. So here's the thing. He rang me, talked me through his theory. And at first I thought, yes, he's right. He's absolutely right. Then I did some research and no, he's absolutely not. It's actually legal. He's claiming that there is a fraud at Companies House that brings in all manner of people, including myself, including, I think, Russell Brand, Andrew Bridge, and all manner of people who've actually been speaking out, right? It's actually legal and regular practice for companies to operate under a different name than their formal corporation name. It's called doing business as or fictitious name in lieu of amending their legal names, which can be administratively more difficult. Now, you can argue the rights and wrongs of this, but what they are doing is not against the law, and it's not unique to company law either. There are numerous legal fictions, including being able to put a different marker on your passport from the biology you were born as, which is obscene, right? Absolutely obscene. You shouldn't be able to do that. But people need to learn more about company law before they automatically assume that Mr. Waterman holds the keys to the universe. I know he can talk a good talk. A good game. I've talked to him. And, you know, in some respects, he may be right, but the fundamental basis of his claim is flawed. And rather than him making videos demanding to know why people like me haven't interviewed him, I mean, such entitlement, doesn't it smack of an ex-cop? You literally have come out of nowhere. You were a sergeant, and now you're running around demanding that people who have been putting their necks on the line for decades listen to you, right? And he insisted that all of this links to trafficking. And frankly, so far, everything that I've seen is that this is not the case. And one of the examples that he used for me is that he can prove that Madeleine McCann and Nicola Bulley are both linked. So I said, talk me through it. So actually, he wasn't able to talk me through it. He wasn't able to convince me. And the only thing that we could deduce from his link was the fact that Mark Williams Thomas, who is a cop and not one that I like, has covered both cases. That doesn't make a link. I've interviewed people who, you know, who've, it doesn't make a link because I talk about the royal family, I talk about presidents, I talk about prime ministers, I talk about Madeleine McCann. Me talking about them does not automatically link all those cases together. And that's the kind of basis that Mr. Waterman works from, right? That's it. And also, as I said to him, and as he said in videos, he's actually running around defaming people at this moment in time. We had that conversation, and it turns out that Mr. Waterman does not understand defamation. And as a cop, he dealt in criminal law, and defamation is civil law. And I've been sued under defamation for several years. And my conversation with Mr. Waterman was, it was absolutely clear that he doesn't understand defamation. And at this moment in time, he is potentially defaming people, and it's wrong. Would you like him to say that you were involved in fraud when you were not? And the fact is, let's be real here. He could be anybody. Have you not learned anything about the infiltration of the truth movement? I'm not suggesting he's an infiltrator. He may actually be just a really good egg who's trying to get a point out, but he's getting out in a way that doesn't make sense to an investigative journalist, right? And no one has the right to demand that I cover anything, right? Because I have to carry the can for the outcome of anything that I cover, right? And that is the reality. So there you go. And the fact is, you won't always agree with me, and that is absolutely fine. Sometimes I get it wrong. I might have this wrong, and I'm prepared to accept that. All I'm saying is, based on the evidence at this moment in time, the basis of his theory is a company fraud. Well, it's not a company fraud because what people are doing is absolutely legitimate, absolutely legitimate. Right. And as I say, you won't always agree with me, and that's fine. And feel free to put it in an email and I will read it out. Okay, I will. Right, moving on. I saw this brilliant article by journalist Sally Beck. Let me find it. And I know we're at 10:06, but the great thing is we can literally just go on and until we don't want to. And let me find it because it's so good. Actually, before I get to that, did you note that Joey Barton calling Jeremy Vine a bike nonce has been ruled as potentially defamatory by a judge, High Court ruled. And so what this is this is a sort of meanings hearing. And this doesn't mean that Joey Barton has lost the case, by the way. That's not how it works. It's a hearings meeting where you present some evidence and you get a judge to decide one way or another whether this thing that is under review is defaming the person. And at this High Court hearing, it was deemed that these things were defamatory of Jeremy Vine. And I just want to be really clear here. And that is, I don't like Jeremy Vine. I absolutely don't. I think he is awful individual. And I say that as having worked with him for 10 years. I was a regular on his show and for 10 years plus. And I covered everything from Occupy Wall Street to I actually ran through a forest once live on air and describe what I was seeing, such as rabbit warrens and different things like that, and that was fantastic. And also, Jeremy Vine was one of the most draconian, totalitarian people to emerge as a broadcaster during the C19 period. Absolutely reprehensible what he was talking about, and absolutely disgusting. And so, whatever you think about Joey Barton, I have to say that when I saw it, I just thought, oh, Joey's in a bit of trouble here, because as someone who does understand defamation and litigation, I just thought there's some problems with these tweets. But it's a preliminary hearing, right? It's a preliminary announcement, and it doesn't mean that Jeremy would automatically win at trial, right? Robert, good morning to you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Trevor says, Jeremy Vile. We are all thinking it. Joey just said it. Said, pull the hat. Oh, okay. And okay. And channel area is rife here. What's going on? Marsh girl, tell me. That's the other thing. Let's use this this live stream for you to tell me what's going on in your area. First of all, what is the sky like where you are today? Please let me know. Graham, I have to say, Jeremy Vine's approach to cycling is just abhorrent. He says there's a danger to other road users. He seems to be what's that? He seems to want to be involved. Yeah, and the thing is, he has his doesn't he have his camera thing on, doesn't he? And he's always looking for things. Just it's embarrassing, isn't it? Right. Moving on. I saw a full list of MPs, which I actually nicked from my ex-producer, lovely Charlotte. Full list of MPs standing down since the announcement of the general election. There's so many here that I'm not going to be able to go into, but let me just pick out some names that you probably know. Kwasi Kwarteng, he's stepping down. Paul Scully is stepping down. And Edward Timpson. Any like big names who's I reckon, see, here's where Sir William Cash, you probably know that name. And here's the thing, which Jamie Wallace, he's the one who, didn't he? Yes, I remember Jamie Wallace. Jamie Wallace suddenly announced that he was trans, right? When he was caught in a very dodgy scenario. Yes, that Jamie Wallace. And so Sir Alok Sharma was involved in the whole kind of climate conferences. And he was the business secretary, wasn't he? And here's where I think it's wrong. I don't think if any politician is involved in a controversy against the people when they are in power, they shouldn't be allowed to just resign and wander off to their multi-million-pound place in a boardroom somewhere. They shouldn't. I think there should be a system in Parliament. First of all, I think that people should be psychologically tested to check that they're okay to enter Parliament in the first place. Secondly, I think they should have had a job. There should be no career politicians, sick of them for a start, right? So no career politicians, psychological testing. And if they go back on their promises to the public, then they should be subject to prosecution. Yes, I think so. Because what they do, obviously, in this run up to the election, right? We know it's now going to be, is it July 4th? Isn't that Independence Day? I think it is, right? So in this run up, obviously, to the election, they're all on their best behavior, aren't they? Or, as some people suggest, that Rishi Sunak is doing everything he can not to be voted so he can hand over the baton to Keir Starmer. I'm not entirely convinced by that rationale, by the way. I think it is highly likely that that people actually think it might be a good idea to send teens off to do unpaid jobs that we should really be paying people for, whether that's firefighters or in the army, right? I think there are actually lunatics who believe that. So, but yeah, huge volume of MPs who are resigning. Mari Black, good Lord, Mari Black, where do I start with her, right? She's SNP. Mari Black took a drag queen with an absolutely obscene name into a school because obviously drag queen story time is the thing that all children should be subjected to, not. But she's been an absolute pusher of that. She's been foul towards women, right? And that is the reality. Oh, the other thing, anybody seen plank roads on Chinese cliffs? I've the great thing about me doing this, I can literally skip from one thing to another that interests me. But plank roads, you must check them out if you haven't. They're on Chinese cliffs, right? And basically, Chinese cliffs, like you must have seen them, and the people build their houses on these Chinese cliffs. And oftentimes now, because obviously with the advent of technology, that people have moved down from the mountains, although tourists still like to access them. So they build these things called plank roads. Are you familiar with plank roads? Because they just scare me even to just look at them. Morning, Samantha from Norfolk, right? Yes, Wizard, they want your kids. Yes, Robert, why pick Independence Day? It is odd, right? It is. But anyway, these plank roads on these Chinese cliffs. So the workers who do them get paid around £50 a day. And if they're lucky, they're extremely dangerous. And what they do, because cranes can't reach them, right? It's manual work. They're extreme conditions. They knock wood and metal into the side of these mountains and they build the supports for the tracks that they will lay down. And it's really scary, like it's incredibly scary stuff, but it's quite phenomenal. It's a feat of engineering in its own right, I suppose, isn't it? And we are coming close to the end of this live stream this morning, but I just want to thank you all for being here, right? Oh, do you? CHB, I get vertigo seeing the photos. I know. Same here. Absolutely. Do the Soham murders too, Sonia? Very questionable, says John. Anybody in the chat think that the Soham murders is questionable? Because I am more than happy to be looking into that with more detail. Now, I just want to check before I step off today that I've covered everything that I wanted to, because I think because I'll be annoyed if I don't. And no, I think we've pretty much covered it. And I just want to thank you for joining us this morning. And whatever it is, oh, also, please don't bother yelling at the telly. Change your viewing. A lot of people, you see them on social media, don't you? They're like really mad and angry with what Piers Morgan or whomever has said. Listen, all you have to do is cut off their supply. Just cut off their viewing figures. Let them die a natural death. Your participation keeps the propaganda alive because it finances them. You know, the thing about advertisers, they don't care why people watch a program. They are primarily interested in figures alone. So whether you love or hate Piers Morgan or Nick Ferrari or Jeremy Vine or any of those reprobates that people dare to call journalists, or if you're watching them or sharing with outrage their latest totalitarian rants, you are still helping to spread their message and keep them funded. Deny them your time, literally just deny it. There are plenty of other worthy voices out there. And in here, give them some of your attention, please. And yes, Michael Gove has gone. Michael Gove, isn't he like seen as the master of dark arts? Because Nadine Dorries, former minister, she wrote a book and quite recently where she talked about how Michael Gove was like basically the leader of the people behind the scenes who are literally removing prime ministers who have been voted in by the public and putting in whoever they want to. And whatever anybody thinks about Boris Johnson, I ain't a fan, but the public actually did vote that man in, right? They actually did vote him in, right? Tony, did you try to email me? Listen, let me just tell you, everybody, I get on average about 100 emails a week strictly to do with my business. And I do try and respond to everyone, but it might take me a few weeks, right? Annie can't watch those videos on plank roads either. They make me feel sick. Absolutely. Do you know? Yeah, Timmer, a horrible little man. Michael Gove has been behind so many things. Remember, he recently also was behind the defining issues to do with hate speech. Like Michael Gove, that is one seriously messed up individual. And he wants to be defining to us what we should be doing in terms of hate speech. So he's now he's off stage left, right? That's where he is. Goodness knows where he's going now, but he'll be in the background. Jan says MPs don't study for their job. They need to pass a test like taxi drivers and food handlers. Thank you, Utrecht. Good to see you too. Absolutely. We voted leaving Europe in and look what we got, said Michael G. Oh, yes, true. 80% Scottish. You're absolutely right about Boris Johnson was voted in with FPTP. And I wouldn't. Okay, Tyron, I'm not going to read that out because, like I said to you, I understand about defamation, and you could say it, but I can't, right? And yes, they are dangerous minds, Mazzy. Absolutely, they are. We must avoid them like the plague. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you all for joining me this morning. I'll be back on Friday. And as I say, everything's constantly changing. Thank you again to the wonderful people who have stepped forward and said, here, let me help you out. And I really gratefully appreciate it. And until I'm able to have my full team here with me, it's going to be just me, but we're going to do it. And we are doing it. We've done it today, and we'll bring in guests to talk to us. And Ian, I agree with you. And I do answer all my emails myself because I don't like other people to see some of the incredibly personal things that people trust me with. And so it does sometimes take me a bit of a while. Thank you, Catherine. Really appreciate it. And right, I think we're about there now, lovely people. I do think we're about there. Just double check in. And as I say, feel free to ask me about things that you'd like me to tackle, like me to look at. I am more than happy to do that. Whatever it is, even if my initial response is, oh, I'm not sure about that. And thank you, TJ. Lovely. Appreciate it. Priscilla. It's our lovely Priscilla, who set off all of our conversations about elections this morning. And we don't hate her for it, not a bit. And for Friday, I'm going to find that fantastic article from Sally Beck, which is about Bill Gates' new burgers, right? And as somebody who doesn't eat meat, I have eaten corn burger. Actually, I think they're very good, but I'm also aware that they're horrendous. They're basically like these things are created in laboratories, right? I understand that. Oh, one more thing before I go, and that is I hate nepotism, by the way. And I'm reminded of that because trending on Twitter right now is the child of Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, because that poor child was given a role last week in The Lion King that sadly that poor little girl did not deserve. She cannot hold a note, and she has the ability to move like her mother, which is wooden. And this is not her fault. I feel sorry for her. There's loads of other nepotism that's just wrong. And what they do is they put these kids on stages because of famous parents. And there's other people, Brooklyn Beckham, right? That kid has been given so many opportunities, his own photographic book, cookery spot on TV, and it's still not happening for him. And the fact is that there are incredibly talented people who are not linked to do not have famous parents. And another one, that Damien Hurley, right? He is directorial debut. That was weird as anything. Directorial debut, filming his own mother, Elizabeth Hurley, in an explicit film, in explicit scenes. Absolutely obscene. Do you know, little Damien Hurley has been raised to take pictures of his half undressed mother. If that is not a cause for concern and a safeguarding issue, I don't know what is, right? And there you go. And that's what I want to say on that. And finally, before I leave you today, I just want to reflect on one of my favorite quotes. It's actually from George Adair. And he says, everything you've ever wanted is sitting on the other side of fear. And so say all of us. Absolutely. I want to wish you all a fantastic bank holiday Monday if you're celebrating it. Thank you, Peter. Really appreciate that. See you Friday, you beautiful soul. I will see you Friday too. Synchronized Souls podcast. And by the way, lovely people, if you want to catch up on more recent stuff also to do with the Madeleine McCann case, check out Only Cans on YouTube. They are friends of mine. But on this subject, I'm not biased because you can either cut it when it comes to Madeleine McCann or you can't. It's simple as that. But they do. They actually go back to the scene of crime recently, May the 3rd. Craig does, and talks to Zoe from there. Please watch it. Absolutely worth a watch. Go and subscribe. You're very welcome, Synchronized. Absolutely brilliant. And yes, Dee, freedom starts with losing the fear. Remember, people, be the person your dog thinks you are, says TJ. And thank you all. Thank you all very much. And I will see you Friday, same time, same place. And now I have to work out how to stop the stream, right? That's what I have to do next. So this is going to be interesting. And just thank you all. Thank you all for joining us this morning. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to be here with you. Take good care of yourself. Have a great Monday.